Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, I just got finished doing a hangout with Jason, Dark Age of Roleplay Games. We talked about Ubiquity. Our original intent was we had both made videos talking about our mistakes running Ubiquity. We wanted to have this kind of discussion with him prior to running the game about some of the hurdles you have to jump over, coming from not only learning a new game but coming from like a different perspective, like OSR D&D. We had a lot of the same experiences. I'm kind of a little bit ahead of him on the learning curve. Just have like a discussion, and we ended up talking about all kinds of different stuff and going off on different tangents. It was kind of fun. So we didn't quite, I'm not sure exactly what my expectations were, but it went off in some different directions. It was fun. So we talked about quite a bit of stuff. We got some more insights into each other and what we like and what makes each other tick. However, I made a video maybe like 2 days ago, or no, maybe yesterday, about what would my guy do, the my guy syndrome, and that was prompted by something Jason had posted, a video he had actually made. And one of the things I did not see was the Stack Exchange post and answer that he was referencing. And so he shared that with me today. I was like, I wish I'd seen that before I made my video. Then I thought about it, not really, because it's a kind of a different topic. And this is what I'm going to call spotlight time. And so this is something I've discussed before, but I'm going to kind of give you this what the answer was for this Stack Exchange question, and talk about how I differ from it, because I definitely, I don't agree with some of the premises that the person that gave the highest rated answer was, and I'm not really arguing with him, because I think I have a different gaming perspective. I have different preferences for playing role-playing games. I have different objectives than maybe this person does, or a whole different thing, some important. And so I don't think they necessarily meant to say this is the only one true way to game, but it came across a little bit that way. And I think this post is a few years old now, anyway. But I'll link it, and you can check that out. But I want to give my perspective on the whole subject of spotlight time. Now, essentially, the example they gave, and then they talk, they went into some detail about this, is from a D6 Star Wars game. And they were talking about the character that was their character, or at least I think, it maybe was somebody they referenced, because I think that the actual thread came from an RPG.net thread, Big Purple. Anyhow, so the idea is that there's three characters. One is a trigger-happy demolitions expert, one is a Jedi, one is an alien diplomat, and there's a bad guy. And they're trying to get on the ship to get the bad guy. They want the bad guy. And the demolitions expert figures out, hey, I have enough explosives to put them right in the exhaust of the ship. We don't have to get in the ship and risk our lives. It'll just blow up. This will be great. It's what my guy would do. This makes sense. Problem solved. Least risk to anybody. So the other two players, the player of the Jedi said, hey, wait a minute. I wanted to have a big, cool, dramatic fight with this guy. Big lightsaber fight. And if you blow the ship up, I can't have that big, dramatic fight. The alien diplomat is saying, hey, I wanted to interrogate this guy and find out what his plans were. Now, being me, I can't get behind the Jedi's motivation and wanting to have his spotlight time. And so, what your guy would do is less important than what my guy would do. My guy would want to have this big fight. I'm not even sure my guy, the Jedi, wanted to have the big fight. I think the Jedi's player wanted to have the big fight, because that would be cool spotlight time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Maybe. If I was the alien diplomat player, on the other hand, I could maybe get behind it, maybe not. If their motivation as a player was to interrogate this bad guy, just because that'd be a cool spotlight time where I get to use my interrogation skill, and this will be a really cool dramatic scene, nail-biting scene, and that's why I don't want you to blow up the ship. As a player, if your motivation is more player-based, I have a hard time getting behind that. However, if it is based in-game, like, hey, I really want to know, we should know, who is this guy working for? What's the bigger picture? What's going on? What are we missing? And that makes a lot more sense. Then if I'm playing the demolitions expert, I might be convinced, hey, you're right. Maybe we should, maybe this will be more dangerous. But you're starting to make sense. Persuade me in character instead of out of character with wanting to have spotlight time. So my perspective, my preference is to play in games, and this shouldn't surprise you if you watch my channel a little bit, where we're discovering what it is like to really be those three characters in that world. What's it like to be this unlikely trio traveling around? And who's that bad guy anyway? What's going on in this particular scenario? What is it really like to be those characters? What would they really do? How would they really act? Would they argue in that situation? Would they decide that perhaps the best course of action would be to no risk of life or limb? That sort of thing. That's the kind of game I like to play in. I am not into getting spotlight time. I understand it. I understand why you want your character to be cool, and I created this character to do this, so I should be able to have all these nifty fights and whatnot. But to me, not at the expense of verisimilitude, not at the expense of the actual motivations of the characters. And so, I believe the author of this answer would disagree with me quite a bit, because he or she talked about the idea that you should place your motivations to be true to your character below the motivations of what would be the best for the group and for the game. How cool the game would be, how much we're enjoying it in real life, out of character. And it's fair to say that we have different motivations or different intentions for gaming at that point. I can understand it. It's supposed to be a fun hobby. But for me, the fun comes more in what we really do here. Right? Let's really discover what would really happen. Even if it meant that there wasn't going to be some dramatic, nifty fight. Sometimes role-playing games make for lousy fiction. If I were to take one of my sessions and turn it into a movie or a book, it might be a little boring to some people. There might not be some really glorious fight, or sometimes the glorious fights would be really, really short because we wanted to get them over with, because nobody really wanted to die. The longer a fight goes on, the more chance you have of getting cut in half by the bad guy's lightsaber or whatever the heck else he has, or being shot to death by his minions. So you do the intelligent thing in that case. Just different motivations for gaming. I get too the idea that everybody has their niche. I mean, I made a video or two about the heist or the caper, where I talked about the idea that all characters shouldn't be useful in every single situation. You do have that thing where who's the guy that's going to have the spotlight time at the safe? It's going to be a safe cracker. It's not even spotlight time. It's like, we need the safe open. Okay, Billy can do that. If there's guys to be taken care of, well, it's the guys the characters that are better with guns and fisticuffs. They'll take care of the guards. Maybe the mastermind will take care of thinking the whole thing up, and he's the guy with all the confidence and bravado, or just overconfidence. Maybe he's just skilled enough and has the smarts. The getaway car driver, the whole 9 yards. You get the idea. But for me, it's not about spotlight time. It's that we need some people with those skills in order to pull off this heist or caper. Different. Sounds the same at first, but it's different. I'm not so much into spotlight time. And this sounds callous and cold, but as a game master or as a player, it's not my job to make your character look cool. If you want your character to be awesome, go ahead, be awesome, do awesome things. But I don't believe that we should stop the game or let the motivations of our characters take a back seat just so your character can go do something cool. Just like I wouldn't expect all the other players in the game, to stop and say, okay, it's time for Philippe to do something cool. Does this mean that as a game master, I don't maybe get a read on what the players like and what their characters are capable of, and put some hooks in the game, that may hook on the characters' motivations, or allow them to use some of their cool skills? Sure. I mean, no, it doesn't mean that at all. Of course I'll do that. But it doesn't mean it's my obligation to provide spotlight time, or the obligation of the other players, or whatever. We don't have to stop the scene. Hey, wait a minute. Joe didn't get to have a dramatic fight. We're going to give him a dramatic fight here. Whether it makes sense or not for the story. And by the story, I mean, what would be the most intelligent thing? What would everybody do here? I think we'll blow up the ship. I would have blown up the ship. What would you have done? You blown up the ship? Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think spotlight time is more important? I'd love to hear your opinion.